All right, Unit 1 review. So here's a few questions that deal with Unit 1 topics. So, first one, a teacher wants to know the average time spent doing homework by the students in her class of 20 girls and 5 boys. She picks the students in every fifth seat. So we're trying to decide what type of sampling is this. And since it does seem like we're doing every fifth one or every third one, then that is a system. So we would call that systematic sampling. The next one says an independent research company wants to go door to door to survey people in the city of Fontana. The company decides to number all blocks within the city limit, randomly choose 50 blocks, and survey all households in each selected block. So it's dividing them up, but then picking like a whole group, a specified group. So what we would call that is a cluster random sample. Okay, the next two are very, very related. It says a blank is a large group that includes everything being studied. So everything, that would be your population. And then a small portion of the population, that would be your sample. The next question, Jane Goodall lived among wild chimpanzees intermittently for decades, studying their social and family systems while keeping her interactions with the chimpanzees to a minimum. This is very important, keeping it to a minimum. Which research method is this as the most appropriate? So she's not really interacting, then we would call that an observational study. She's just observing. All right. The next says the number of pages that Caroline wrote in her journal each day from Monday to Friday is shown below. Okay, we got 9, 8, 12, 6, and 10. What is the mean number of pages that she wrote per day? So mean, that would mean the average. So what you would do is just add these up. So that would be 17, 19, 29, 35, 45. If I add it up, 45, and then divide it by how many days? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so the average then would be 9 pages per day. That is the mean. Mean is average. Oops, sorry. The next question says if you score 76, 85, 97, 83 on your math test, what would your median score mean? That would mean the one that is in the middle. And it is important that they must be ordered, okay? They must be ordered. So you just want to put these in order. So we've got 76, 83, 85, and 97. Now, as you can see, we do have an even number. So these two are in the middle. And so you find the average between 83 and 85, which would be 84. So 84 would be the median. All right, the next question says the heights of male students are normally distributed with a mean of 1.7 meters and a standard deviation of 0.2 meters. In a population of 400 male students, how many would you expect to have a height between 1.3 and 1.5? So a lot of information here. Normally distributed. That means it follows that bell curve. Now the mean would be right in the middle. That would be the 1.7. And then the standard deviation is 0.2. So that means one standard deviation, that would put us at 1.9. 2 standard deviation, that would put us at 2.1. All right, and then if we came back this way, 1 standard deviation this way, that would put us at 1.5, and then 2 standard deviations this way would put us at 1.3. which this is the area that we're looking for between 1.3 and 1.5. So we need to know, well, what is that? So you do have to remember the empirical rule. This says between one standard deviation from the mean, that would be 68%. Okay, and then 2 standard deviations from the mean, that would be, so 1 standard deviation, remember, is 68%. 2 standard deviations would be 95%. And then 3 standard deviations would be 97.5%. All right, so now, sorry, what we want to do is think, okay, well, what is this right here? Well, you've got to split your 95 a little bit. So you've got, this is 95, but if we split that, it's 34 and 34, which would mean that this right here is only 13.5. Because if you had 13.5 plus 34 plus 34 plus 13.5, that would give you your 95. So we've got this 13.5%. Well, that doesn't quite answer our question because it says how many? Well, what is 13.5% of 400? So what you want to do then is take the 400 and we're going to multiply that, okay? Multiply that by 13.5. We got to make it a decimal, 0.135. All right, I'm running out of room a little bit here. Let me jump over here to the calculator. So we had the 400 students, 400 times 0.135, and that gives us 54. So that, to answer our question, that would be 54 students. So got a few steps on that. The next one's talking about that empirical rule as well. It says what percentage of the data falls within 1 standard deviation. We just talked about that, and it is 68%. And the next question asks, it says a research team surveys 200 high schoolers in Glen Oak. They find that 57% of them drive to school each day. What is the margin of error? So you got to remember that formula for margin of error, and it really doesn't matter with the 57%. We really don't need to know. What is most important is what is the sample size. And so to find the margin of error, it is just simply plus or minus. It means it could go over or under 1 over the square root of the number in the sample size. So we would just simply say, all right, well, what is 1 over the square root of 200? And you'd want to jump back to your calculator. All right, so clear that. So 1 divided by the square root of 200 equals. Now that gives me like 0.07, and if I wanted to write that as a percent, then, you know, we just move the decimal over 2 places because it gives me this 0.07. But then if I just move the decimal point 2 places over, that means 7% would be my margin of error. And that is Unit 1.